Citizens of the Reject Nation, welcome to Koi's Comic Corner, a very special She-Hulk centric episode. We are talking about the cameos we could see in She-Hulk. Now, there's been a lot of hopes, there's been a lot of rumors. It's also very logical to bring in a bevy of new characters in a law-based show, with She-Hulk having so many superheroic friends. And recently, one of the writers said about season 1, and I quote, "There will be a lot of fun, a lot of cameos, and a lot of characters that have never existed in the MCU before that we're pulling out of the comic books." You know how much that excites me. Now, before we get into it, please do leave a like. Helps us out very much. Please do share this video, leave a comment, like, subscribe, hit that bell, all of the other YouTube things. And most importantly for me, leave a comment letting me know what you want to see more of. Let me know what other videos you'd like. And thank you. I'd just like to thank you for checking out my TikTok. A number of you have found my TikTok. It is largely what I'm doing here, but in short form, 15-second to 3-minute bursts of comic book knowledge coming at you. Now let's get into She-Hulk. Now, Hulk, Abomination, and Wong are not cameos. They look to be all over this show. They are not going to make this list because they look to be full-on supporting characters, so we're not going to consider those cameos. And like I said at the top, this is a show dealing with the first superheroic lawyer. She's going to be defending superheroes. She's going to be meeting superheroes. This is the pitch-perfect way to bring in a lot of characters, so let's talk about who they might be. Number 1, Daredevil. Now, this could be a full-on guest star. This could be a full-on supporting character, but right now we're going to call it a cameo. We did have a beautiful moment in that newest footage where we do have Daredevil fully clad in his suit. And in the comic books, Daredevil and Jennifer Walters are friends, and Tatiana Maslany confirmed that it is in fact how they're going to be in this show. But we could have She-Hulk and Daredevil fighting because we don't know which side of things they're going to land on. Now, Matt Murdock is obviously a lawyer, so I'd be excited to see if Matt Murdock faces off against Jennifer Walters and Daredevil faces off against She-Hulk, and we have that fun in and out of the office dynamic with these characters. We've seen there's a comedic tone to the show. It would be interesting if maybe she doesn't know Matt Murdock is Daredevil at the top, and we've got that conflict. It's a very classic comic book conflict, and I think going forward, it's very smart to establish what Matt Murdock's line in the sand is, what that's going to be going into his 18-episode show in the future. I'm hoping this is a bit more than just a throwaway cameo. I hope he does more than catch a brick and say he's a very good lawyer. No matter how much Daredevil we get, I want all of it. On to number 2. Number 2, and one of the biggest rumors that I have no idea if it's true or not, but it's so big, I'm excited. Ben Grimm's The Thing. Now, Ben Grimm might need a lawyer. Ben Grimm might just be walking by and break something. I'm imagining that idea of damage control by way of lawyer, not the Department of Damage Control, that's a different thing in the MCU, but actually causing damage just by existing. If anyone's going to break stuff by walking through New York or any major city, it's The Thing. It's Ben Grimm. We've heard for some time that we're going to have the Fantastic Four already established. That movie we've just had confirmed is not an origin movie. What better way to incorporate the Fantastic Four than by sprinkling in characters in fun comedic ways and building to their solo movie? Just like with the Avengers, we had Hawkeye and Thor. We had all these characters kind of sprinkled in. I think it's very smart to have Ben Grimm introduced with Jennifer Walters, and there does look to be an element of Jennifer Walters feeling self-conscious about her being the Hulk, her feeling not quite herself, green and 6'7". There could be a great conversation between The Thing accepting how he looks and coming to terms with that, as well as She-Hulk. I'd love if there was an element of The Thing and her bonding over embracing their appearance and embracing who they are now, and I'd love if that was the dynamic they have in the show, if Ben Grimm's in it at all. This just in, we are getting confirmation that Donnie Blaze, there is a Ghost Rider rumor that's been going around for a long time. Greg made a video out of it. We're going to find out how true that is. I'm very excited and hopeful. There does appear to be a something Blaze, and there does appear to be a Blaze behind him. This might be the Ghost Rider cameo we've been rumored to have. This might be any of the number of actors we've had kind of bandied about. And again, we're leading towards the Midnight Suns. We are getting Blade very soon. We are having more and more supernatural elements, especially after the Multiverse of Madness. We've gone into this world of the underbelly. Mephisto's coming, but we don't know how far they're going to go. I think it's very smart if they are going to start introducing these differently toned characters to do it in a fun way. You can really mess up Ghost Rider. It's a fun way to introduce him in She-Hulk, and I think a smart way. I'm very, very much hoping it's Norman Reedus. Number 4 is 3 characters. It's kind of cheating, and that's okay. Returning Netflix characters Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, I think as a couple, and because they are very, very close friends in the comics, Hellcat, Patsy Walker. Now, Hellcat and Jennifer Walters are ride or dies. They're besties. So are Jessica Jones and Jennifer Walters, and I do honestly think this would be a really fun way to bring in Luke Cage and hopefully child of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. I would love to see Jessica and Luke as parents. I would love to have that family dynamic, especially juxtaposing Jennifer Walters on Tinder. I think it'd be really fun, as we've seen the dating elements of the show, if you've got that one friend that's still dating and you've got the other friends that are like married with kids. When you hit a certain age, internet, there comes a time where you're the last single friend, all your friends are buying houses and married, and no, it's not sad, it's very fun. I hope that's Luke Cage and Jessica Jones dynamic, and I also would love if we get to see some Hellcat. I think you can really usher in the entire Netflix universe in this show, and that brings me to number 5. I also think number 5 as a twofer is going to potentially be Colleen Wing and maybe even Foggy Nelson. If you've got Matt Murdock, you've got some lawyers, maybe you don't want to have too much Matt Murdock because you're leading to the Daredevil show. Maybe you don't want to have Daredevil element. It might work to have some really fun Foggy stuff. I really like how they used Foggy in the Daredevil show because he didn't feel like he was pushed aside. Foggy is the heart of what Matt Murdock represents. He keeps him centered. It could be fun if Jennifer Walters is torn and she doesn't know what to do with the case, and Foggy is also her guiding light. I think it'd be a fun dynamic. And then as far as Colleen Wing, this is a leap. It's a stretch, but I do feel like Iron Fist wasn't exactly beloved in the Netflix universe. It'd be cool if they were able to incorporate elements of that show that did work, and Jessica Henwick definitely worked. I'd love if maybe she became Iron Fist. We'll see, but those are my theories. Number 6, Red Hulk. Now this one's tricky because we did just lose the actor who played Thunderbolt Ross, William Hurt, and that does complicate things, but that is a very integral character to the greater MCU. Thunderbolt Ross isn't the reason they named it Thunderbolts, but in other interpretations, Thunderbolt Ross leads the Thunderbolts. I know it's confusing. I do think that he's important to the greater saga of Hulk and therefore to She-Hulk. I don't know how much they're going to be incorporating Hulk's rogues, but we're going to talk about a few more characters later that might come into play. But I do know that Hulk and Abomination tie directly into She-Hulk here. That's how She-Hulk gets her powers. It looks like Abomination's her first client. I do think they're tying this pretty heavily into both the Mark Ruffalo and the Edward Norton Hulks. So I would love if we get a Red Hulk. I would love if we see the variety of Hulks come to play. I would love if that's an evolution of both her character and where we go with the Thunderbolts. I just don't know how they do that in respect to William Hurt. If they do go that way, I think recasting versus reanimating with CGI, or have him be stuck as the Red Hulk, have the mustache, have that uncanny valley, just keep it as the Red Hulk. Or it is possible that they did already shoot some stuff before he passed away. They might be able to use some footage where they have him as the human element of Thunderbolt before he transforms into the Red Hulk. Or you cast Ed Harris. Maybe Ed Harris. Number 7, Modok. We're going to get weird. We're going to get into those characters. Here we are. Now, this is a machine designed only for killing. What if that machine designed only for killing comes into the courtroom like, Jennifer Walters, please represent me. I'm a machine designed for this. I was designed to kill. I can't control my instincts. What if she has to defend something that was made to kill that doesn't feel like he has a choice? Obviously, we know Modok has a choice. Also, on the other side, he's very closely tied to AIM. Now, AIM is Advanced Idea Mechanics. This is a giant supervillain conglomerate of mad scientists. They wear beekeeper masks, hats, big yellow suits. They're ridiculous. They were briefly mentioned in Iron Man 3, but they weren't this full supervillainy quite yet. That said, they are very important to the video game, as is Modok. There's an Avengers game that isn't this continuity, but is using elements of things I think the MCU is going to use. I could see Modok being an element of Advanced Idea Mechanics that could then tie into Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I do feel like AIM would suit that world, or Jennifer Walters in future seasons going up against giant evil corporations as things escalate. I could see all this happen. Number 8, going from Modok to Betty Ross. That's the way lists go sometimes. I could see Liv Tyler coming back. We did see in What If where they used the Hulk canon from before Mark Ruffalo was Hulk. We did see Ed Norton's Hulk utilized in a What If. That could be kind of reminding people and laying the groundwork again for Liv Tyler. This is very much a family story. Jennifer Walters is Bruce Banner's cousin. That blood transfusion is how all of this occurred. I could see maybe this being the way they have more screen time to allow for Liv Tyler to come back. As we've had it now, we haven't really had a Hulk solo movie because there were rights issues. Universal owns the Hulk, or did own the Hulk. Now he's coming back, but there's issues between single and team. It's a whole thing. You don't need to get into it. It's a lot of law. That being said, it isn't applying to a She-Hulk show what they're allowed to do, and this long-form format would be a great way to tie up more continuity from the Ed Norton era, maybe bringing us Liv Tyler and Betty. Betty and Jenny are friends, so hopefully that works out. I'd love to see Liv Tyler come back. Number 9, the most important character on this list. A character we've dreamed of since Thanos first turned around and smiled. A character I've wanted to see on screen since I was a young man. A character that rivals Spider-Man in his "that's a slightly gross animal mixed with man in title alone" characteristics. A character that is so ripe with super villainy that he's going to leap into our hearts and make us quake in our froggy boots. Frogman is coming, and Frogman is going to be ridiculous. I don't know if they're going to call him Leapfrog. I don't know if they're going to call him Frogman. I don't know what's going to happen. He's in the trailer. I hope he's someone she defends. Frogman, number 9. I just wanted to talk about Frogman. Not even kidding. Number 10, the Secret Invasion is coming. Number 10, a lot of people are going to be trying to figure out who is good, who is evil in a courtroom. What if one of those people is a shapeshifter? What if one of those people is a Super Skrull? What if we got the Super Skrulls here, laying some groundwork for a Fantastic Four? What if we got, what does it mean when you're talking to someone and they can literally transform? What's the legality behind that? I would love to see some metamorphosizing. I would love to see a big green alien with the different limbs of the Fantastic Four. The Super Skrulls have been around since the 60s. The Super Skrull leadership would be a fascinating commentary leading into Secret Invasion. I'm very hopeful at some point, maybe not here, but in the near future, we get a Super Skrull. I think it's possible here. Number 11, one of the great characters in the Hulk mythos is his father. A lot of the rage that Hulk feels, which is obviously very important to Hulk, is towards his father. His father abused him. His father was a monster. The Immortal Hulk comic is going to be my recommendation for this whole video. Go read Immortal Hulk. There's a lot of stuff with Bruce versus his father, and I really think that maybe if they're dealing with the family elements of Jennifer and Bruce and their dynamic, maybe they'll get into the origin of Hulk. Maybe they'll tie everything back to what makes him angry and made him so incapable of controlling his stuff versus Jennifer Walters able to control it. She breaks the fourth wall. She stays the Hulk but can still speak and serve law. She's got it under control. Why didn't Hulk? Because of his father. It'd be an interesting dynamic and would add some depth to the show and would add some really interesting and honestly kind of therapeutic elements to phase 4, which has been the therapy season. So let's see if they do it. I kind of want some Hulk Dad. Number 12, I really want the Wrecking Crew. I think they're coming. I can almost guarantee they're coming. Now these guys are, 4 like Pal Driver. They're a ridiculous set of team here, and they've been around since the 60s. The Wrecking Crew has fought Spider-Man, they've fought Thor, they've fought Hulk, they've fought She-Hulk, but I could see them maybe being a team that she has to defend. I could see them maybe getting into some problems and this being a way to bring in a ridiculous Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, Kirby era set of villains we haven't seen in the MCU before as a way to be like, yeah, we know they're a one-note joke, but this is going to endear us to them. I think we might, and I'd put money on the Wrecking Crew, and I would say Jennifer Walters defending them would make comic fans happy, and it would also be a great way to show how ridiculous things can go in the law side of the MCU. Number 13, Jack of Hearts. Now, this character's relation to She-Hulk is far too long to get into, and he's a really weird hybrid. He's half human, he's half Contraxian, he's a whole thing, but at one point in the comic books, he's responsible for killing Jennifer Walters. He's responsible for depowering her. He accidentally ends the life of Jennifer Walters. This character has a really iconic imagery. He's half dark, half light. He's got a lot of card iconography, but I do think bringing him into this and having him as maybe someone Jennifer Walters dates or someone that, because he's of hearts, he's got this whole charm bravado about him, and then comic fans would be like, oh, that's important to She-Hulk later, but also in the dating, I do want to see some metahuman dating. I don't want Jennifer Walters to only date the guys we've seen in the trailer. I think it'd be fun in a speed dating montage or even going on a date if she gets to date someone with powers, maybe Matt Murdock, but maybe Jack of Hearts. Let's get after it, metahuman bonin. Number 14, Jazenda. Now this is not a Super Skrull. She's a regular Skrull, but she has a lot of ties to Jennifer Walters in the comic books, and she's someone that's working against the Skrull. She's good, for lack of a better term, to not be so nuanced about good and evil, but she's a good Skrull. I would love if we start laying elements leading up to Secret Invasion of Skrulls that have our interest at heart. As of right now in Captain Marvel, most of the Skrulls we've seen are on our side, but I don't think that's going to last very long. I'd like to see a few more Skrulls we meet now. That way when the Secret Invasion happens and there's a lot of conflict, maybe also when we get the Marvels and we've got this Kree-Skrull war to come, I'd like to have a lot more Skrulls established, so I'd like to see Jazenda, and I do honestly think this would be a great place to bring her in. These last 3 are for me, and my lucky number's 15. These are the ones I want most. 15, Amadeus Cho, the totally awesome Hulk. Our newest Hulk in the comic books is a young super scientist that's able to stay in control, but also is one of the smartest people on the planet and is the strongest one there is. He's a really fun take on the Hulk. He's a young, hip, he's a champion, but what he does is he kind of allows for the young Avengers to have a Hulk. He kind of allows there to be a new generation of like wielding this power set. So I'd love if we've got Professor Hulk, She-Hulk, they're professionals, they got jobs. What if we get a totally awesome Hulk and he's this rad kid Amadeus Cho? I think we're leading towards Young Avengers, and I think any good team needs a Hulk. Give me Amadeus Cho, even as a cameo, even as the human element of him that will one day later transform. As a nerd, I need that Easter egg. I was thinking, do I want to say the big wheel? Do I want to say Paste Pop Pete? Do I want to say Rocket Racer? What preposterous character? Arm fall off guy. Who do I want that is the most ridiculous villain to make Frogman look possible? I'm going Stiltman. I want Stiltman in here so bad because he's a dude that steals by inventing a stilt suit. He literally lifts hundreds of feet in the air and has long stilty arms and he steals stuff. And I want to see Stiltman for one scene in his little contracted suit or wreaking havoc in a town and someone have to defend him in the court of law. And I love that Stiltman has been around since the 60s. I love that there's a lady Stiltman. You heard me. Lady Stiltman. And I love the fact that this character has endured and it's about time the MCU respects the stilts. Number 17 and my last maybe. There's plenty of other options. Again, this could have been 45 long, but Greg is like, Coy, no one's going to watch that but you. And I was like, that's true. But one I think will be coming because of the villain in this show. Titania often dates Absorbing Man. Victor Creel is Absorbing Man, and he's a very fun character because he's able to literally touch things, absorb them, and wield their power. He's fought Thor and Hulk to standstills. He's a very powerful character when he wants to be, and I think it'd be really interesting. He also has history with Matt Murdock's dad. So I think it'd be really interesting if we've got the Daredevil elements incorporated into the supervillain elements, and then you start to see that these characters relate to both the civilian identities and the superhero identities, which is what this show is going to be about. As of the MCU to date, we've had a lot of separation of super identity and regular identity. Everyone kind of knows who these characters are, right? Like, other than Spider-Man and Daredevil, pretty much everyone's unmasked in the MCU. We haven't had the opportunity to show the conflict between civilian and superhero. I think that's what She-Hulk is going to introduce very strongly in the MCU. Where Miss Marvel was able to introduce the word mutants and introduce a world that hates and fears them, I think She-Hulk's going to start to represent the idea of dual identities and how those kind of differ. I think a great way to do that is Absorbing Man. He's got history with Daredevil as a civilian, and he's got history with these people as heroes, and I think that's going to be a really fun thing, and he's dating a supervillain. So I'd put some money on Absorbing Man. I think he's coming. I think it's a fun way to bring him in, and I think it sets up a lot of the themes we're going to get with She-Hulk.
His name is Carl Creel.
God damn, I was so...
Victor Creel's Stranger Things.
You know what happens when...
You're a fucking idiot.
I just got fired. This is the last Coy's Comic Corner. This is, guys, it's been a pleasure. I enjoy Stranger Things more than Marvel, I guess. I've failed this city. Carl Creel with a cameo by Greg. Carl Creel's coming, you lovelies. I appreciate you all very, very much. Please do leave a comment. Let me know what more you want to hear about. Let me know other things you'd like to see a video about. Let me know how excited you are for She-Hulk. And please do, again, check out my TikTok. And most importantly, go read a Carl Creel comic. See you next week or tomorrow. Who knows when.